With the release of Tears of the Kingdom's new trailer, a lot of new information was revealed to us about the game, giving us more insights into what the gameplay will be like in the skies of Hyrule. However, while the trailers of the game showcase only Link being playable, demonstrating his new green hand abilities, ever since the first teaser trailer, we've seen Zelda being much more involved than what she was in Breath of the Wild, at least for the beginning portions of Tears of the Kingdom. One detail that stuck out back in 2019 with the reveal of the first teaser was Zelda's new short hair, as well as her updated clothes having a unique hood much like the Hylian hood Link is also seen wearing, which led many to believe that this design choice was made as she would be more active in the sequel, as her long hair would have been quite troublesome to animate if she is to be performing more acrobatic actions. While none of the trailers for Tears of the Kingdom seen thus far show Zelda being playable, recent artwork of Tears of the Kingdom may be hinting that Zelda could indeed be playable in some capacity, as we can see her holding a Sheikah Slate, a device that Link used extensively throughout Breath of the Wild to navigate all parts of Hyrule, as well as accessing many of the Sheikah structures such as the towers and shrines scattered across the kingdom. Its design is significantly different from the one we saw in Breath of the Wild, as this one, considering Tears of the Kingdom is a Switch exclusive, is based on the Nintendo Switch, unlike the one from Breath of the Wild, which was modeled after the Wii U as it was developed for that console. Nintendo has deliberately created a new item to replace the one that was pivotal in Breath of the Wild, which has also been replaced for Link with the green hand in functionality, as it possesses very similar powers to those of the Sheikah Slate, being a replacement for Stasis as well as Magnesis, meaning Link would have no need of this new Sheikah Slate. It is so important that Nintendo themselves have directly pointed it out in their tweets, which means that it will very likely hold some significance to Tears of the Kingdom's gameplay and story. In fact, I am pretty sure this could be the very same Sheikah Slate that Pura mentions in her diary, one she made herself to test her beta version of her anti-aging rune. As we see Zelda falling down to the depths below, and the artwork has her holding a torch, she would be exploring the dark underground caverns of Hyrule. However, Link and Zelda are already underground when they encounter Ganondorf, yet Zelda falls even deeper down into the darkness, into what I believe to be the location shown in this shot, which seems to be very far below Hyrule's surface. If you compare the large cavernous system filled with trees and mushrooms with the other cave shots in the trailer, such as the one with the stone talus, you can clearly see that they are vastly different, with the mushroom caverns, aside from having a lot of wild vegetation, having very visible dust or spore particles floating in the air, making it almost seem like a brand new world, akin to the Upside Down from Stranger Things. I don't believe that the caverns that Link is exploring in the trailer are the same as those seen here. In fact, I don't think Link will explore this particular cave at all, but Zelda, with the trailers misleading us to think that only Link will be playable in the game. Enemies in this underground shot, unlike those seen in the overworld, as well as the shots of Link within the other cave systems, are all seen oozing malice, which seems to be unique to this expansive underground area. This reminds me in a way to the ancient system from Skyward Sword, where, in a similar dynamic between a sacred and purified top level and a cursed and tainted underground cavernous level, much like the contrast between the Sacred Sky Islands and the malice-tainted caverns of Tears of the Kingdom, the bottom levels of the ancient system had cursed bokoblins that released crystallized malice when defeated, as well as the area having pools of jinxed purple water very reminiscent of the malice pools found in the underground of Tears of the Kingdom. Because of this, I believe that while Link will explore Hyrule's overworld, the Sky Islands, and surface level caverns, Zelda will be the one to explore the expansive deep underworld of Hyrule. This could lead to an interesting cooperative dynamic between Link and Zelda, connecting the sacred islands of the sky with the malice-tainted caverns below the ground, where they both could interact with things in their environments, which would affect elements in the other's surroundings. in a very similar way to how the ancient system from Skyward Sword had puzzles that shifted between the top and bottom parts of the dungeon. So how could this cooperation between the two play out in regards to switching between Link and Zelda? The first and least likely option is that we will be able to swap between Link and Zelda at any point in the story, by means of a button in one of the in-game menus. I don't think this will be the case, however, as Link and Zelda could be at two completely opposite points in Hyrule, and coordinating between the two, especially in such a vast world, would seem almost impossible. However, I am more inclined to think that it would be for very specific sections of the game, such as dungeons or other locations of importance. But if there isn't to be a dynamic cooperation system like this, then the other alternative would be a side story focused strictly on Zelda, completely unique to Link's own adventure. It turns out that a separate second quest for Zelda was almost going to be implemented in Skyward Sword, where Zelda would have been playable in her own side story. On page 297 of Zelda Encyclopedia, developer notes explained how, during development, the team considered turning Zelda's adventure after she landed on the surface into a fully playable second quest. It never became a reality, but the setting of that story was used in the cinematic shown after the game's ending. While this side story was scrapped, and its remnants were used as cutscenes in the game's credits, the core concept of a playable Zelda in her own side story could be reused in a future Zelda game, such as Tears of the Kingdom. This side story could be in the base game, or also be included as a DLC in the same way as the expansion passes from Breath of the Wild. But the fact we've been shown this location, as well as artwork right off the bat, makes me believe that Zelda will be playable in the base game, as we were not shown promotional artwork of Breath of the Wild's DLCs before the launch of the base game. With Zelda being underground, she must have her own journey before once again reuniting with Link in the game, which I believe to be this scene in the trailer, where she would now be wearing white robes of Zonai origin. It is possible that this story will be a retelling of the scrapped story from Skyward Sword, repurposed and reinterpreted for Tears of the Kingdom, where Zelda will probably attempt to regain her sealing powers, as at the end of Breath of the Wild, Zelda confides in Link that she can no longer hear the voice of fire inside the Master Sword, and that she has come to terms with the degradation of her powers over the past 100 years, which would explain why she would most likely not be able to use her sealing powers anymore in Tears of the Kingdom, needing for them to be reawakened. Similar to Skyward Sword, Zelda perhaps may encounter a Zonai equivalent to Impa in the underground caverns, a mentor-like figure who will aid her in her adventure in a manner similar to the old man in the Great Plateau. This character could, perhaps, be this masked character presented in the murals of one of the trailers of Tears of the Kingdom, where they can also be seen beside what looks to be an ancient princess of Hyrule, perhaps this being a sort of prophecy, playing out long in the future, as it is also possible that the voice line where Zelda asks someone to lend Link their power could be directed at this mysterious figure from the murals during their adventure deep below Hyrule Kingdom. Much like Skyward Sword, this side story could end with Link and Zelda reuniting, where Link would meet Zelda wearing the new ceremonial Zonai robes, similar to Skyward Sword Zelda's wearing Hylia's white robes, where she would bless Link and the Master Sword in a similar scene to that of Skyward Sword, or the Champion Ceremony from Breath of the Wild, perhaps restoring the blade to its full power. A survey about Tears of the Kingdom that recently surfaced also has some interesting information that gives light to the dynamic between Link and Zelda. One of the questions reads the following: do you want to experience an epic story of good versus evil? In The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you embark on a grand adventure that pits Link and Zelda against a dangerous force. Your loyalty to each other will prevail in a story that occurs after the events of the previous game. You will encounter many thrills and fears on your quest to save the land of Hyrule. The part about loyalty to each other makes it abundantly clear that Zelda will be helping Link throughout the adventure. However, as we've seen with the trailers, she is nowhere to be seen, and the voice lines we hear of her talking to Link about him not being able to defeat Ganondorf sound to be quite distant, likely as she's speaking to Link telepathically in the same way she did in Breath of the Wild from Hyrule Castle, only this time Zelda will do so from deep below the kingdom. If Zelda is indeed to be playable, she would need a way to interact with the environment like Link does, and what better way to do so than to bring back the Sheikah Slate. It is very possible that this new slate will have the same exact runes from Breath of the Wild, which would now mirror the new abilities of Link's Green Hand. With Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, we got a chance to play as Zelda to fight against hordes of enemies. However, rather than using traditional weapons, she instead utilized none other than the Sheikah Slate itself, where she used the runes to attack her foes, so I can definitely see something similar happening in Tears of the Kingdom. As Zelda is not a fighter like Link is, she would have to find a way to deal with the enemies scattered on the ground. Stealth would play a big part in this, distracting enemies and perhaps creating diversions by making noise to lure them to specific areas for you to sneak past them. The monster encampment seen in the shot also possesses metal crates around it, which we have not seen in any other shot of any other trailer of Tears of the Kingdom. These crates could be manipulated in Breath of the Wild using the power of Magnesis, and since Zelda now has a Sheikah Slate, she could very well have the Magnesis rune available to manipulate metal objects just like in Breath of the Wild. After all, she must have a way to deal with the enemies, and a way that I can see her doing so is by utilizing the Sheikah Slate's runes to use the environment against them. On the back of the Sheikah Slate, we can see that it has a very interesting lens shaped like a Sheikah eye. I think it is very possible that this lens could allow Zelda to scan her surroundings, in a similar sense to the Lens of Truth from Ocarina of Time, or even the Wolf Sense from Twilight Princess, revealing objects or hidden passageways, or perhaps even spiritual enemies or characters that are otherwise invisible to the human eye, who would appear as blue flames, like seen here next to this pool of malice, like many characters did in Twilight Princess when enshrouded in the glowing embers of Twilight. Aside from the main runes from Breath of the Wild, those being Magnesis, Stasis, Cryonis, and Bombs, as well as those such as the Camera and Amiibo runes, I can see other runes and functionalities being added to the Sheikah Slate to create a more varied gameplay experience to differentiate it from Breath of the Wild, so that it isn't just a carbon copy of the last game. As Nintendo shows off more of the game, I get more convinced each time that Zelda will indeed be playable in Tears of the Kingdom, a series first that could make Legend of Zelda history. Of course, we can't say it will happen for sure until Tears of the Kingdom releases, or they actually reveal her gameplay in a future trailer, and I can definitely see this being one of the things that Nintendo may purposefully not advertise, as to keep it a big surprise for the fans of the series. Tears of the Kingdom is going to be big, not only the biggest game in the entire series, but also the biggest Switch game of all time made by Nintendo, with its 12.2GB file size as opposed to Breath of the Wild's 14.4. So regardless of whether Zelda is playable or not, this will be one of the greatest Zelda games of all time, and I would like to think that if Zelda were to really be playable going forward alongside Link, it could propel the series in a very exciting direction. What do you think about this? Will Zelda be playable in Tears of the Kingdom? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified of future uploads. Also, consider following me on Twitter and Instagram to stay in touch. This has been SOCIAL, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.